You're listening to Adventist World Radio. This is Adventist World Radio, the voice of hope.
Ici Radio Mondiale Adventiste, la voix de l'espérance.
Hier ist Adventist World Radio, die Stimme der Hoffnung.
Questa è la Radio Mondiale Adventista.
La voce della speranza. This is Adventist World Radio, the voice of hope. For more information, visit us on the web at awr.org. The following program is in English.
Hello and welcome to Wavescan, the international DX program from Adventist World Radio. Researched and written in Indianapolis by Dr. Adrian Peterson and produced in the studios of WRMI Shortwave in Okeechobee, Florida. I'm Jeff White. This is edition NWS 685 for release on Sunday, April 10th, 2022. On the program today, the Voice of America on medium wave at Poro in the Philippines. We'll also have our Philippine DX report from Henry in the Hive. And finally, a tribute to Violet Peterson. The third relay station for VOA, the Voice of America in the Philippines, was located at Poro Point, 150 miles north of the national capital, Manila. Interestingly, though, that one VOA relay station at Poro was, in reality, 4 different radio broadcasting stations, all clustered together. Ray Robinson now goes back to the beginning.
Thanks, Jeff. The Wallace Air Force Base at Poro Point on Luzon Island in the Philippines was originally acquired by the United States for use as a cavalry base back in the year 1903. It was subsequently taken over for use as an American Air Force base. During the year 1950, at the time when China was supporting the North Korean attempt to take over the entire Korean peninsula, the Poro location was used as a radio listening base for monitoring Chinese and North Korean broadcasts. Tents and other temporary housing were hurriedly erected and sophisticated electronic equipment was installed. In an attempt to cover the same areas in the Far East with their radio programming, VOA announced its plan to install a massive 1 million watt medium wave transmitter at the same Poro Point location. The radio behemoth they chose was a Continental transmitter model 105B, which was in fact 2 500 kilowatt transmitters combined in parallel to make a single transmitter in one huge metal shell. The first 1,000 kilowatt Continental Model 105B was built for VOA as a long-wave transmitter on 173 kHz, and it was installed in Munich-Erching in Germany in 1953. The intended coverage area from this superpowered long-wave transmitter was Eastern Europe, and in particular Russia. Later in the same year, in June 1953, the huge 1 megawatt medium wave transmitter, which, like the long wave transmitter, had been manufactured in Dallas, Texas, was inaugurated at Poro in the Philippines with a single tall transmission tower. It's probable that this transmitter was the first 1 megawatt medium wave transmitter, Model 105B, constructed by Continental. The signal from that 1 megawatt unit on 1140 kilohertz was heard far and wide, loud and clear. The transmitter was accorded a Philippine call sign, DWVA, though that designation was never used by VOA, not in their on-air announcements and not in their publications. In 1978, new international radio regulations implemented 9 kHz channel spacing in Asia, and accordingly the operating frequency for VOA DWVA at Poro in the Philippines was changed from 1140 kHz to 1143 kHz. During the year 1995, a new 1 megawatt medium wave transmitter was constructed at the Harris Radio Factory in Quincy, Illinois, in the United States, in preparation for installation at Poro in the Philippines. At 5 p.m. on Monday, June the 26th, 1995, this new 1 megawatt Harris medium wave transmitter was activated at the factory in Quincy on 1143 kHz for a series of preliminary test transmissions. The new Harris transmitter was their first 1 megawatt medium wave transmitter, and later in 1995 it was duly installed at Poro in the Philippines, most likely on the shortwave transmitter building. At that stage, the original Continental was taken into active retirement as a backup, if necessary, for the newer Harris transmitter. However, there was one major problem. The medium wave frequency for VOA Poro, 1143 kHz, now suffered from severe interference in the Far East due to a Taiwan transmitter on the same channel, 1143 kHz, with a power of 100 kilowatts. Beginning on December 6, 1997, a series of test transmissions lasting 9 days was conducted on what was considered a more successful medium wave frequency, 1170 kHz. These test broadcasts, which were on the air via the Harris transmitter at VOA Poro in the Philippines, simply used instrumental music rather than the regular VOA programming feed. Nevertheless, VOA Poro remained on 1143 kHz, though a new 4-tower directional antenna system was installed in an endeavor to propagate a stronger directional signal into the Far East. Then again, another series of similar weekly test transmissions was conducted 6 years later in 2003, with both superpower medium wave transmitters on the air simultaneously, the Continental on 1143 kHz and the Harris on 1170 kHz. In 2005, the Harris transmitter was removed from its first location, probably in the shortwave transmitter building, and reinstalled into a new and specifically constructed building where it began operation at the full power of almost 1 million watts on the new and now regular channel, 1170 kHz. At that stage, the Continental was finally retired forever, after half a century of lifetime service. It was both the first and last Continental 1 megawatt to remain in active service. However, the lifetime for the newer Harris superpower transmitter was also coming to an end. In March 2013, VOA DWVA was noted in Asia and the Pacific as off the air, silent. The issues of the World Radio TV Handbook for the next few years showed the station as inactive, and then in the 2016 issue, it was no longer listed. VOA superpower medium wave at the Wallace Air Force Base on Poro Point in the Philippines was now totally silent, off the air and gone forever. So whatever happened to those two superpower 1 megawatt medium wave transmitters? Well, we don't know, but we'd guess they were simply sold off locally as scrap metal. You can see what remains of the VOA station at Poro on Google Maps. The two medium wave transmitter buildings and sets of antenna systems are still visible. We plan to present the story of the shortwave station at Poro in a coming edition of Wavescan. So now, back to you, Jeff.
Well, thank you very much, Ray Robinson at KVOH in Los Angeles. And we'll look forward to that story on the shortwave station at Poro. Now to Henry Omathai with his Philippine DX report.
Hello everyone, to dear shortwave listeners, wherever you're welcome to the April 10th edition of Philippine DX. This is report number 181. I'm Henry Omathai in Bacolod City, Negros Occidental, Central Philippines. Glad to be back and thank you for listening. I would like to thank our DXer friends for sending their reception report. Most recently, Mr. Richard Lemke in Alberta, Canada, Mr. Constantine Barkensop in St. Petersburg, and Mr. John Zachary Alvarez in Cavite here in the Philippines. All of you, thank you very much. Reception logs for March 2022, March 6, Radio Free Asia on 15340. In Chinese from Ping Pong at 0832 SIO 333. March 6, World Christian Broadcasting KNLS on 11875 in Chinese. From Anchor Point at 0845 SIO 444. March 6, NSK World Radio Japan on 15280 in Japanese from Yamata at 0832 SIO 454. March 3, Voice of China, China National Radio 1 on 11760 in Chinese from Sijiazhuang. 0849 SAO 433. March 13, Radio Taiwan International on 11745 in Japanese from Baochong. At 0850 SAO 444. March 13, KCBS Pyongyang on 11680 in Korean from Kanchi. At 0852 SAO 333. March 13, RTMY Limbang FM on 11665 in Malaysian from Pachang. At 0853 SAO 333. March 20, PAWH around 165 English from Midang Palau. At 0856 SIO 333. March 20, Voice of America on 11825 in Chinese from Tinang at 0910 SIO 555. March 27, Adventist World Radio on 15450 in Chinese from Adventist SIO 555. March 27, Transworld Radio KTWR on 11965 Indonesian from Agana, Guam at 10:15 SAO 44. For March 27, Adventist World Radio on 17540 in Ilocano from Agat, Guam at 0950 SAO 434. And March 27, New Life Station KNLS on 9580 in English from Anchor Point at 10:20 SAO 433. Send us your comments, suggestions, reception notes, and informations to philippinesdx@gmail.com. That's PILIPINASDX for philippinesdx@gmail.com. This has been Henry Umaray for Wavescan in Bacolod City, Negros Occidental, Central Philippines. Mabuhay at maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Henry. The war in Ukraine continues to bring a large amount of attention to shortwave radio and its ability to get news, information, and messages of hope to people in all of the affected region. We've seen articles about this in many print and online publications such as The Hill, The Washington Post, and The Telegraph of London. Radio and TV stations in France have covered the shortwave story, and so has EWTN, a Catholic cable and satellite TV network operated by the same organization that runs WEWN, shortwave radio, in Birmingham, Alabama. EWTN News interviewed us at WRMI and Glenn Tapley at WEWN, who's a frequent guest here on Wavescan, for the following report.
This week, President Zelensky granted a groundbreaking interview to four...
Finally, some sad news today about a member of our AWR family. The following tribute, She Is My Girl, was written by our DX editor, Adrian Peterson, and I'll read it for him. It is with a heavy heart that I announce the death of my dear wife, Violet, at the age of 88. She breathed her last with me in the home of our daughter and her husband in Martinsville, Indiana, in the United States, soon after early daylight on Thursday, March 31st, 2022. My wife was born as the seventh child in the prominent Adventist Doble family in suburban Sydney, Australia, on Monday, July 17, 1933. She was indeed named after the pretty flower, the Australian version of the English violet, and the color violet was also her own favorite color. The name Violet symbolizes truth and loyalty, while it also embodies a sense of modesty, spiritual wisdom, and humility. All seven of the Doble siblings gained their education in various educational units operated by the Adventist Church in the state of New South Wales, Australia. And they all entered service with the church in Australia, New Zealand, New Guinea, and the Pacific Islands. In their varied capabilities, they served in medical work, educational institutions, as church pastors, and as secretaries. An older sister married a pastor who served as president in 4 consecutive territories in Australia and New Zealand. Allow me to reminisce a little. Way back when I was a student at Avondale College or University in a country area between the major cities of Sydney and Newcastle, I happened to observe a small group of girls who were part of the intake of new students for the new school year. One of those girls wore a dress in blue, It was made up of one complete flower pattern. I thought to myself, that girl has a touch of class. During the following year, we began a new friendship, and we exchanged large photographic portraits. The colorized photo of the pretty 18-year-old Violet stood on a frame on my study desk in the boys' dormitory at Avondale. That photo declared unequivocally, she is my girl. After college and after marriage, we served in pastoral and radio ministry in 3 states of Australia: South Australia, Tasmania, and Western Australia, and then volunteered for overseas service that took us to British India for nearly 20 years. It was in Colombo, Sri Lanka that I was invited to launch a new DX program for broadcast in the International Shortwave Service of SLBC, the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. A quick transfer then took us to Pune in India, where we served for 10 years at the production studios of what became the original AWR Asia, Adventist World Radio in Asia, the largest of more than 100 AWR radio studios on all continents. It was here in Pune, India, that Violet was appointed as the administrative secretary for Adventist World Radio, and she typed all 574 scripts for the original AWR DX program, Radio Monitors International. In addition, she typed and handwrote, and sometimes signed, several thousand QSL cards on behalf of AWR Asia and Radio Monitors International. Those historic QSL cards are still retained in radio collections on all continents, and they're a valuable reminder of one who served the international radio community quietly and efficiently from behind the scenes. It was during this era that the well-known international radio monitor in India, Josh Jacob, VU2JOS, served as a volunteer with Adventist World Radio and Radio Monitors International. After the death of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, the political scene in India changed, and it became necessary for 3,000 missionary families of all Christian denominations to leave India. The AWR headquarters on the edge of Washington, D.C., invited us to take up residency in the United States and to retain our service with Adventist World Radio. For us, it was from India to Indiana. It was here in Indianapolis, Indiana, that Violet took employment as a secretary for various commercial medical units, though she often assisted with various activities and events associated with the AWR office in Indianapolis. Violet Joyce Double Peterson lived a full and productive life. She loved her family, son Melvin in aviation in Asia, and daughter Janelle in education in Indiana. And she loved her church, where she served as organist. She served her husband lovingly and completely, and she was appreciated and honored by all whom she befriended. 1 Thessalonians 4:16. For the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a commanding shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trumpet call of God. First, the believers who have died will arise from their graves. Peterson, International Relations and DX Editor, Adventist World Radio. We end this edition of Wavescan, the International DX program from Adventist World Radio, with music from an album called Violet Evergarden, Echo Through Eternity. The song, Her Spirit Lives On. Thanks for listening to Wavescan, the International DX program from Adventist World Radio. Researched and written in Indianapolis by Adrian Peterson. Next week, the story of the 2 shortwave stations known as Radio Sada-e-Kashmir and our Bangladesh DX report. Several QSL cards are available for this program. Send your AWR and KSDA reception reports for Wavescan to the AWR address in Bangkok, Thailand. I'll give you that in a moment. Also to the station your radio is canceled. WRMI or WWCR or KVOH or Voice of Hope Africa, or to IRRS Italy, or to the AWR relay stations that carry Wavescan. Remember, too, you can send a reception report to the DX reporters when their segment is on the air here in the program. They will also verify with their own colorful QSL card. A car postage and an address label are always appreciated. The email address for AWR QSLs is qsl@awr.org. The postal address for AWR QSL cards is Adventist World Radio, P.O. Box 234, Prakanong, that's Prakanong, Bangkok, 10110, Thailand. Again, Adventist World Radio, P.O. Box 234, Prakanong, Bangkok, 10110, Thailand. And the email address for other correspondence to Wavescan, not reception reports, is wavescan@awr.org. I'm Jeff White at WRMI Shortwave in Okeechobee, Florida, USA. Till next week, good listening, everyone.